Welcome to Creekside Chats with successful multifamily real estate investors. Dr. Allen chats with successful investors exploring their journey from setback to triumph. Through this window, we glimpse the truths that inspire our guests to invest abundantly and flourish in all areas of life. And now your host, Dr. Allen.
Welcome to Creekside Chats with successful multifamily real estate investors, where we delve deep into the lives of our successful guests to learn the secrets of thriving to flourish abundantly in all areas of life. I'm your host, Dr. Allen. Today's guest is an investor, business owner, author, and entrepreneur. He has grown his real estate portfolio to over 1,500 multifamily units and is teaching others how to do the same. His educational and coaching program is founded upon the framework of buy right, manage right, and finance right. He is the best-selling author of 3 books, Wheelbarrow Profits, The Honeybee and Family, Food, and the Friars. Welcome to the show, Gine Barbaro.
Thanks, Alan, for having me on. Appreciate it.
I'm sure there's so much that we can learn from you. You just have such a well-rounded background, and I am really looking forward to getting to know you. I like to start with my guests with the question of, as you look back over your life, even into childhood, think about an experience that you really consider to be a formative experience that has brought you to where you are today, and that could be anywhere from 1 year old to 60. So think about a formative experience in your life.
Oh, wow. Well, I think probably for me would be my father. I had a great dad. My mom is still alive. My father passed away 13 years ago. And I just remember my dad, he had a restaurant, Italian immigrant, came over, hard worker, and he was sick. He'd have ulcers and with the partnerships, and I never heard him complain. And he always went to work. And he provided for the family. And I hear people complain nowadays about the stupid things. And there's no parents out there right now. There's no responsibility out there. I think about that. How much he suffered. But he was always there. He gave me a great life. And that's all I want to do for my kids. I think that's all the average person wants to do for their kids, is just be able to provide. And we don't have any role models nowadays. Kids don't have role models. It's not black. It's not white. It's not Asian. I think if we don't have proper role models, proper moms, proper dads, people out there showing us how to do it. And that's what my dad did. He went to work. He struggled. He made a great living for us. But I never heard him say, I'm tired. He just did it. And to me, that's a role model. And that's how I've led my life. So working hard for me has been ingrained from when I was very young. And now, unfortunately, all I did in the beginning was just work hard. I never worked smart, and I never worked with passion, which I call the Trinity, right? And for me, once I left the restaurant, got into real estate, and ultimately became, quote unquote, they call it financially free, which just means you found what you love to do. And money doesn't mean it may really make as much of a difference as it used to, because I don't really work for money anymore. I work to be on these podcasts. I work to be on these shows. I work to help the Jake and Gino community. That to me is what I was lacking. That's what I was missing. So everyone out there is just working hard, but sometimes just step back and think about why you're working. And we don't really do that a lot because there's no more financial intelligence. I want everyone to really write this down. And to me, it's the key for me going forward. People with financial intelligence can change the world for the better. That's basically what it comes down to. When the pandemic hit 3-4 months ago, I wasn't freaking out saying, where am I going to get my next paycheck? I sat down and actually thought clearly with my partner, Jake, what are going to be our priorities for the next quarter? How are we going to retain our employees? How are we going to pay our bills? That's what we thought of. We knew we had enough money. We had enough capital expenditure. We had enough CapEx in the bank. I had enough reserves. 5 years ago, I may not have had that, but I was able to do that because of my financial intelligence. And that doesn't mean you need to be the most amazing investor, but learn how to set a budget, learn how to save properly, learn how to take responsibility, learn how to invest your money. All these things we're not being taught in school. And I think the person who has that financial intelligence will lead a much more productive and much more empowering life. So you got me that first question. It was a powerful one because, I don't often think of my dad as I should. And yesterday was Father's Day. So, reflecting on that, it's all the fathers out there who go to work and provide for their families and don't complain and just do what they have to do.
Yeah. There's so much I like about that, and I appreciate you sharing, and I can tell it was a very touching moment for you. But I like the power that came from really a servant attitude that your father gave to you, and I can look back on my own father and can really appreciate that in him. And I've never really been able to match him in his servanthood. The next question is, and I think you were kind of alluding to this, and Robert Frost wrote the poem a long time ago, Two Roads Converge in the Wood, and I took the one less traveled way, and that has made all of the difference. And you had alluded to what sounds to me like a major crossroad in your life 5 years ago. Can you talk to us about that crossroads, what brought you to it, and how it has actually ultimately changed your life?
So the crossroad began when I graduated college. We all have inflection points in our life. And I graduated college. I went to work for AIG back in 92. It was a great job, but it was bored. And I said to my dad, let's buy a restaurant. So he already had his restaurant. Let's go out and buy one together. And I think that was the first inflection point. I wanted to get into business, and I met my wife at the restaurant that we bought, and I loved it, right? For 10, 15 years. It was wonderful. The next inflection was my dad passed away back in 2007. And at that point, I started thinking to myself, am I building his dream or am I building my own dream? Did I go into the restaurant business because of him? And should I continue to do it? The Great Recession shifted everything with Uber Eats and deliveries and all this, and the margins got smaller, and I'm working harder and I'm working less. So I really looked inside and said, what do I want to do with the rest of my life? I'm 38 years old. I've got 6 kids. I need to provide for them. I just can't be irresponsible. And always in the back of my mind, having my dad there saying, you have to provide. So for me, I just started to get educated, started going to life coaching school, started the personal development, started to go to real estate and get a mentor in real estate. And that's when I started learning. And I think the biggest one for me was back in 2015 when I became a life coach. I really had the personal development and the clarity of what I wanted to do. I really wanted to become an educator. I wanted to help others become financially free. And I had an amazing wife and a supportive wife. And she said, if you have to leave the restaurant, let's do it. So from the support of her and having her blessing and, knowing that, I really had to work hard. And that was one of the turning points for me. Once I left the restaurant in March of 2016, which I call my D-Day, that was quote unquote financial freedom for me. I was able to leave, and then, with an amazing partner, Jake, we started doing real estate full time. We started our podcast, we started writing our books, and it was all about that. But for everyone out there, you really need to become clear with what you want in life, because most of us aren't clear. There's so much noise out there, whether it's Instagram, Facebook, the media, and we don't have times where we can reflect on what we want, and we can't focus. If you can't focus on what you want, you're not going to get it. Everyone would always ask me, Gino, what do you want? I'm like, I don't want to be at the restaurant. Well, that's not what I'm asking you, because I didn't have that clarity. And once I got it and I was able to formulate a plan, and I was able to surround myself with like-minded individuals, with partners like Jake, with my brother, with other partners, that really exploded and really helped me out getting into the real estate space full time.
Well, can you clarify for us what it is that you defined as your purpose, and how did you come to that decision, or that
Alan,
clarity?
Yeah, for me, I just didn't want to see my kids growing up and seeing their dad go to work at a job that he really didn't like, right? And that's hard, because I didn't want them to equate hard work with not enjoying what you do, right? And that was one thing that I really didn't like. The other thing was I didn't feel like I was in control of my destiny working at the restaurant. It was a decent living. It was okay, but one week you make money, one week you don't. The merry-go-round, working on the holidays, working Christmas Eve, working Easter, missing every weekend because I had to work. I had done that for years and years and years, and I sacrificed. And that was okay when you're younger, but as you getting older, it just gets tiring, right? And it didn't feel like I said, I was building my dream. And my dream ultimately was I loved helping other people. I loved talking to others and just sharing what I had. And like you said, not even being an inspiration, but saying, hey, if a pizza guy can do it, you can do it. It's just that there's not a lot of things that are taught in school nowadays. We're not taught financial intelligence. We're not taught how to balance a checkbook. We're not taught about entrepreneurship. And I said, you know what? When I get to there, this is what I want to ultimately do.
Well, what gave you, I guess, the clarity to go into real estate? I mean, you were in the restaurant business and
Hmm.
were successful at it. A lot of people have made a lot of money franchising restaurants, for
Hmm.
instance. What made you decide that that was not the route for you, but real estate was the route?
I think two big things. I guess Mark Twain, I forget what his quote is exactly. It's not what you do. It's not what you know that you don't know. It's what you know that it ain't so. Right. So for me, I didn't know back in 2004, 2005, how to build a business and how to create systems. And it's all about people, systems, and culture. I didn't know that.
Mhm.
I was so focused on delivering quality food, and I was in the kitchen, and my dad instilled in me that hard work ethic, but never working, on the business, always working in the business, right? And never
Mhm.
working on it. And that was the big distinction for me. And we only had one restaurant, didn't really ever think, I had such a limiting belief that how am I going to be able to scale this and franchise this? Well, you're obviously never going to have the amazing quality that you can with one, that you can with five. You may have a little bit less. Like look at Papa John's, look at Domino's, and look at all these other franchises, whether it's
Mhm.
Carrabba's. I just didn't think I could do it, right? Didn't have any idea at all. And for me, I was dabbling in real estate. My mom owned the building and she had 3 apartments upstairs. And ironically enough, when it snowed, when it rained, when we had hurricanes, her tenants were paying the rent. I wasn't getting paid for the week. So I made that connection early on. Wow, you can actually do really well with rentals. And we had accumulated a few smaller rentals. And then I met Jake back in 2009, and he was on the same journey as me. He was a pharmaceutical rep. And he said, you know what? I need to do something else. All we wanted to do was make a few $1,000s a month each. That was our goal, to create some passive income. He moves down to Tennessee in 2011. And I'm like, I don't even know where Tennessee is. Knoxville. I had no idea. I'm a New Yorker. New Yorkers don't know anything out of New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut, basically. So he moves down there and we start looking at deals. It takes us 18 months to find that first deal. It was a big struggle, but we found it. And then for us, the thing with multifamily, everybody out there, it's a scalable business. You can buy a 5 unit or a 6 unit and scale up and create those economies of scale and start hiring people. Whereas when you're doing the single family space, it's really hard to hire those quality people. And the same thing with
Mhm.
the restaurant. I mean, I only had one restaurant for over 20 years. Jake and I now have over 1,600 apartment units. So what I've learned in the last 5 or 6 years, it's getting coached up. It's learning from others who've done it. I've never done it before, so I had to actually go out and I don't want to say the word spend, invest in my education. And that's what Jake and I ultimately did, and adding on and really worrying about the culture piece in our business and our core values, and really making those great hires. I wasn't doing that with my restaurant. Every time I got an employee, I didn't really think about what our core values were. I didn't hire and I didn't fire off the core values, and I wasn't a great leader. You don't
Mhm.
attract what you want, you attract what you are. And I wasn't a great leader at the time. Now our focus is more on our employees, then we focus on the customers, and then we focus on our shareholders or our investors. I think that's the way you need to do it, because we're an employee-based business. We're all about customer service, whether it's the education company, whether it's the investor base, whether it's our residents, and we have to focus on them, because if they have great experiences, they're going to come back and they're going to actually continue to be in our community, in our tribe. So I've learned that, but ultimately for me, it was so many limiting beliefs. And that's what coaching did. Coaching actually had me expose all those limiting beliefs, that
Mhm.
if the guy from, Papa John's can do it, why can't I do it? And the guy from Papa John's was a smart business dude. He actually surrounded himself with other people. He became a leader. So I think everyone really needs to work on themselves, like I said, once again, and become
Right.
clear and don't have those limiting beliefs, because that they'll hold you back. I mean, my biggest limiting belief that I hear in multifamily is, well, you need money to get multifamily. Well, that may be the case, but do you need your money? There are investors out there. There is creative financing. You can do master lease options. We've done owner financing. So don't limit your beliefs to what you know right now, because there's a lot of stuff out there that you don't know that is holding you back.
That is absolutely the truth. I mean, it is limiting beliefs that
Hmm.
keep so many of us from following what it is that is really important to
Hmm.
us. Well, you've talked about your relationship with Jake. Tell us, how did that relationship come together? How did you all meet, and how did you form such a productive and positive relationship?
Jake was a pharmaceutical rep, and he was my brother's friend, actually. And I just recorded a podcast for our multifamily zone. It's the 1 year podcast. Me and my wife do a show for spouses and communication, and Jake and his wife Whitney were on it. And the title of the show was "Would There Be a Jake and Gino Without Whitney Stenziano?" And Jake reminded me this morning. No, actually, your brother introduced this. So my brother introduced this over a decade ago, and Jake was a really diligent worker. I mean, he would come in, he would have his lunches for his doctors. I would know when he needed them. He was a really hard worker, clean cut, really nice kid, right? And we just formed a great relationship, and I knew his work ethic. I didn't know about his business ethics or at the time, but I said, let me continue to stay in touch. And one thing I loved about Jake is do as you say and say as you do. And up until this day, whenever we have something to do, we both take responsibility. It's one of our core values is extreme ownership. So I never hear Jake say he's tired. I never hear Jake say, I can't do that. It's, when can we do that? So for me, it was all about value-based decision-making. I liked his ethics. I love his family now. I love his work ethic, and I love the way he takes responsibility. And once again, like my father, I was attracted to him because there's no excuses. I mean, we don't know something, we'll learn it. We're going to commit and figure it out. And we'll work as a team, and there's no ego involved, and we're working for each other's families. And I really love it. I think it's great. He works on the property management side of the business. I work on the education side, but they blend together so much. And there's so much that we've learned from each side that they're not really siloed. They're really one entity working underneath, and we're all sharing resources and helping each other out. And that's what I love most. And I think if anyone out there is looking for a partner, first and foremost, just make sure that you like the person, because it really means a lot. You're going to be spending quality time with them, and a lot of the time, because I've already spoken to him 3 times this morning. I've got a call at 4 p.m. We work on our goals together. We do everything together. Now, if you're going to do a one-off real investment deal, that's a different story. But if you're going to start creating businesses or entities with partners, just make sure you like the person, and then set out the expectations through it. When we first started out, we were doing everything. I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And that's what entrepreneurs do when they first start out, because they need to learn. But as you grow, just make sure you start segmenting out and making sure that everyone's got expectations set and how they're met. And I don't want to hear anyone's excuse out there saying, well, I'm working a full-time job. When I started this with Jake, I had 6 kids. I homeschooled in the morning before I went to the restaurant. I went to the restaurant at 10 o'clock in the morning. I had lunch at 2 p.m. That was an hour worth of work from 2 to 3. I got home at 8 o'clock at night, and then I did my work after then. So if you need to have it, and if you have enough reasons reap rewards, you will find the time. Don't make excuses out there. And Jake had the same thing. Jake was running around. He was a sales rep. He was doing that job full time. He was just married, bought a house. So you need to have enough reasons. And like I keep saying, clarity. I had plenty of reasons out there. I had a big family to feed, and I wasn't inspired to what I was doing. And I was, looking at my life, that midlife crisis. I wasn't out there wanting to go buy a Ferrari. I wanted to know, how can I make an impact in this world, and how can I be a role model for my kids? So that gave me the clarity, and that gave me enough reasons to say, hey, I need to learn more. I need to work harder, and I need to find a way to make it happen, as we like to say. And that's, partnering with him has been amazing. One thing about partners also, it's the mastermind. When I have problems, or I'm feeling down, or during this pandemic, we like to talk about what's going on. And I want to share it with someone other than my spouse, because I want to get someone else's opinion. And I'm always there talking to him, and we're so like-minded. We're able to bounce ideas, and it's just, to me, it's refreshing. I've never had something like that in my life, and it's been really, really inspiring for me. It's been a real big help for my life.
Well, it sounds like both of you have been blessed to find one another in your lives there. It has been an extremely enjoyable conversation, Gino. We're coming to the end of our time here. Could you share with our listeners how it is that they can get in touch with you?
Sure. Just go to jakeandgino.com. Go on our website. We've got weekly podcasts. We have blogs. If you have any questions, my email is gino@jakeandgino.com. Shoot me an email. Ask me anything. Financial freedom, speaking to investors, what's going on in the market. I love real estate. I love talking to real estate. So, and I answer all my emails. So.
Well, Jake, I have one last question, and I ask most of my guests this question. When you come to the end of this life's journey, how do you want your epitaph or your obituary, whatever you want to call it, to read?
I just want my kids to say that Dad was there for me. That's all I want. And my wife to say that, you know what, he was great. He provided for us, because to me, that's the most important thing, leaving a legacy for my kids and making sure that they're proud of what I've done and that I've always been there and I've spent enough time with them and I've made them grow as young adults. That's really all I want to be remembered for.
That's quite a lot.
It is. Got a lot of work cut out for me.
Yes, indeed. Gino, it's just been a real delight, and I do appreciate you being on the show today. I look forward to future conversations.
Thanks, Alan.
So much
I
more to
appreciate
talk
it.
about.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to Creekside Chats with successful multifamily real estate investors, brought to you by Steed Talker Capital. Steed Talker Capital works with both new and established investors nationwide, creating opportunities to flourish in all areas of life. As part of our efforts to make the world a better place, Steed Talker Capital contributes to activities and organizations committed to better understand the equine. These endeavors attempt to enhance the human treatment of horses worldwide. Steed Talker Capital, working for a world where all creatures great and small flourish abundantly. For resources to enhance your well-being through multifamily real estate investment, connect with us online at capital.steedtalker.com.